FanDuel is the exclusive wagering partner of the CLNS Media Network. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to a practice edition of the Garden Report. Obviously, the big news at practice today, Brad Stevens' media availability. He talked for about 13 minutes about the trade deadline, the season to this point, and other topics that I hit on in our last video here on Celtics All Access. But at practice, pretty extended run from the team here today, which Stevens also described as being pretty focused and intent on improving upon what was difficult loss to the Thunder late in that game, going behind by 18 before almost coming back and stealing that game late. But certainly Joe Mazzulla talked today about how the defensive connectivity, the toughness in that game, and the transition defense especially thwarted any chance of the Celtics winning that game. Weren't connected with their individual efforts either. And he explained the decision that was probably the biggest takeaway from that game of Payton Pritchard playing late over Jrue Holiday in that game. Here's how he responded to that. Payton over Jrue down the stretch in that game. What went into that decision and just overall what you're seeing from Jrue recently?
I thought Drew's actually been really good. He's got career highs and a lot of stuff: defensive rebounding, offensive rebound, three-point percentage, three-point attempts. Did a great job on Cade Cunningham. I think he's playing really well. I think the decision to go to that says more about what our team is and the depth that we have and the ability to play different personnel in different lineups. And each game's going to present an opportunity to bring something different to the table. And I thought Payton just brought that full-court ball pressure and a little bit of that different, toughness for that particular moment. But it just says more of a testament to our team and the depth that we have on both ends of the floor.
Thank you, Joe. So, Joe, not going toward anything that Jrue isn't doing right now, pointed more as he did after that game to what Payton did in that game. But it was really the first time, or at least one of less than a handful of times this year, that the Celtics, when fully healthy, went away from that starting five to close the game. I think there were other situations where Kristaps and Al swapped minutes there in different matchups, foul trouble, potentially a reason for that as well. But it seemed to be performance. Payton giving the Celtics a little bit more at that spot in that game than Jrue was able to on that night, where Jrue finished with a paltry shooting number. He's missed a lot of layups inside too, and the defense wasn't great in that game from him either. He didn't talk today. It was Al actually talking about, just the overall play to start this season, what they focus on after that loss. There really haven't been many losses this year, and as we talked about in the postgame, this is one of the very few that were decided early rather than late in crunch time. I know it was a crunch time loss technically given the 4-point result, but the Celtics going down by as much as they did early was the reason they lost that game rather than anything that happened in crunch time there. We'll see what happens in terms of those rotations late in games later in the season. I have to think that they're going to keep going back to those. But Joe emphasized that they're finding ways every day to play with more toughness, and that was a situation in that game where the Thunder's skill, speed, youth outdid what the Celtics were able to do with bigger lineups, trying to play physical on the defensive end and throw multiple defenders. Great defenders at Shea and others out there, but the Thunder offense was just that much better. Again, as we talked about on the show a couple nights ago, not a loss to panic about, but the schedule coming up, and that was a conversation today too, a couple back-to-backs over the next week, 5 games in 7 days, travel along the way, along with 2 games against the Pacers, a team that has challenged the Celtics at full strength this year and just beat the Bucks last night in a very impressive showing. All going to be ways to challenge the Celtics on that toughness point, the defensive consistency, and the offensive execution, which we always have an eye on here. So a long session today. Joe got involved in a playmaking session with Jason Tatum, walked them through some finishing points at the rim. I think that's an area of concern right now for the Celtics, mild concern. Their finishing and how that's leading to transition baskets for teams the other way. And Jalen did his usual routine, which Joe contributed to a little bit in terms of seeing the floor, playmaking, going through different reads and progressions there ahead of the Jazz game tomorrow night. Celtics won't shoot around here, but of course it is the return of Will Hardy. We see Danny Ainge. I think those are all fun topics whenever the Jazz come to town. They won last night as well. They're on a nice little stretch coming into this game after a rough start to the year for that group. They're a good team, and they'll challenge the Celtics before they're back-to-back against the Pacers. We'll see who's available as well. Front end of a back-to-back. Do they rest someone? The injury report will, of course, be out shortly for tomorrow's game, about 5 o'clock today. So we'll have more on that. later tonight. Check us out at Celtics All Access. Check out our discussion about Brad Stevens' availability today there, and all the interviews that happened today in full on CLNS Media. From Auerbach Center, I'm Bobby Mann. This has been a practice edition of the Garden Report.